The question I want to ask you now is, how many roles should there be? Should a stakeholder be identified for just a single role, or is a stakeholder allowed to be identified for more than one role on the RACI matrix? And the answer is that a stakeholder should be identified for just a single role. So even though we said that there can be multiple people in the informed and multiple people in the consulted, you shouldn't have any crossover between the two. You shouldn't see somebody's name in both of these. Every person should be in one column only. And of course, we said that there should be an easily identifiable person who is responsible, even though he or she may delegate to others. And there's one person who is accountable, usually the executive or the sponsor of the organization. Where more than one participation type is shown for a stakeholder or group, this generally means that participation has not yet been fully resolved. So it is often an indication that you need to do some more negotiation and discussion in order to clarify what the roles of those people who are finding that they're showing up in a couple of different columns. You need to have some kind of better clarification. Now, there is an exception to the previous rule that I just gave you. So fill in the blank here. Very often, the role that is accountable for a task or a deliverable may also be blank for completing it. The answer is responsible. Very often, the role that is accountable for a task or deliverable may also be responsible. That's especially true for smaller and simpler tasks. So just wanted you to know that that is a possible exception to the rule. Have you been using the RACI matrix? If you have been, give me an indication. Yes, I have been using the RACI matrix since the PMDPro1 course. Or if you haven't, give me an indication. No, I haven't been using the RACI matrix since the PMDPro1 course. Now describe your experience using the RACI matrix. When and or how did you use RACI? What problems did you face when trying to use RACI? You likely included some of the bullets that I have up on the screen right now. Under when and how did you use the RACI? I'm sure that some of you were using it to try to increase participation that would bring about empowerment that would contribute then to the success of your project. That's a characteristic of many international development projects, particularly those that are implemented by NGOs. You also may have mentioned that you wanted to use RACI in order to minimize the negative effect of those who want the project to fail. Ideally, would wish that everyone wanted a project to succeed, but there are almost always people who have a negative attitude or see themselves as being in some type of competition with the project, and so it is very important to identify those people and to strategize how they can be given a role or how their roles can be managed to minimize their effects. Monitor whether people stick to their assigned roles. I mentioned that in the previous slide when I showed you the PMDPro phase model, that it is often very important to use the RACI as a control tool. You can look at the RACI and compare that to what is actually happening to see if anyone has stepped outside of their assigned role and what type of action might be necessary to deal with that problem. And finally, there's the aspect of promoting learning, and especially learning related to getting a lot of participation or high quality participation. I'm sure that you listed several other ways of using RACI. Secondly, what problems are faced when trying to use RACI? It's time consuming. It takes time to determine and assign roles, and it takes time, especially when time is at a premium. Some people may resist being assigned as a specific role because they'd rather not have accountability or specific accountability. They'd rather be able to do anything that they want and not be restricted to a certain assignment. So it's good to try to be more specific from a manager's perspective. Some stakeholders may feel excluded if assigned certain roles. You may find that some stakeholders want to be in more than one of the columns. They want to be both in the C and the I. They'd like to be both consulted and informed at their choice. And you may need to, for example, tell them or negotiate with them that they are in the informed column and that actions or decisions may be taken without their feedback. And finally, I've seen this in practice, that there is a tendency to place too many people in the C column, the consulted column. And that can make any decision related to change complicated, and it can really slow things down.